Hello everyone and welcome back to another instalment of Charlie Talk, the channel that has a lot of fun poking the finger at the utterly ridiculous and intellectually bankrupt. Understandably and rather predictably, conspiracy theorists took issue with the last video. Some of the sorts of things they had to say were, who pays you? It's too late. We all know about the 5G death ray. Looks and sounds just like an industry shill to me. Who are you? Bill Gates' grandson? You have no facts. You're a fucking retard. And you haven't presented any peer-reviewed studies. It goes to show just how well conspiracy theorists adapt, because only half a decade ago you'd be having an argument and you'd be the one to say, sorry, I just don't accept what you're saying. There have been plenty of peer-reviewed studies to say otherwise. And they used to go, what? Peer what? Now they've learned and they love to say it. I want to see peer-reviewed studies. Except the difference is, when we used to say it, that was because perhaps there was a lack of studies. But when they say it, they just keep on saying it, no matter how much stuff you throw at them. And despite me explaining the entire electromagnetic spectrum and the point where we have to be concerned about danger, people still couldn't resist aggressively asking questions like, how on earth can you say there's no harm from radiation? If there's no harm, then why do we have to be protected by loads of lead when getting an X-ray? As stated, clear as a whistle, X-rays are part of the spectrum that is ionising and therefore harmful. Evidently for some, explaining how the electromagnetic spectrum actually works wasn't good enough. People would much rather ignore all of that and have some messianic charlatan like David Icke, son of the Godhead, just sit down and tell them how spooky and fucked up the world's supposed to be.
There is no COVID-19. It doesn't exist.
Another thing that conspiracy theorists seem to rely on as proof that 5G hasn't been tested is a video of Senator Blumenthal asking questions and not really getting the answer that he wants, which, you know, is a bit pathetic. In the video, the senator asks for industry executives whether or not they know of any tests that have been carried out, but there seems to be a little bit of confusion. The executives reply by saying that, to the best of their knowledge, no industry studies have or are being conducted.
There are no industry-backed studies to my knowledge right now. Happy to visit with you as to what opportunities you think there needs to be more studies, and we're always for more science. We also rely on what the scientists tell us.
Immediately, conspiracy theorists like to look at this as some sort of win, but it's not a win of any kind. Conspiracy theorists like to spend a lot of time and energy dismissing studies that prove 5G's safety by claiming that all such studies are industry funded. But now, they're not talking about studies being funded by industry, they're talking about studies conducted by industry. The reason why they say no is because it isn't the industry's job to conduct the studies. Senator Blumenthal, well, he's just being a dick. Why? Because even when asking them the question, he's clear to point out that independent studies are what he would find more satisfactory.
How much money has the industry committed to supporting additional independent research? I stress independent research.
And then, even though he's already said that independent studies are preferential, still acts dissatisfied when the executives say no, there aren't any industry studies.
But no, I'm not aware of any.
So there really is no research ongoing. We're kind of flying blind here, so far as health and safety is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Blumenthal explains that he had already written a letter to the FCC about safety concerns and wasn't very satisfied with their response. I read the response, right? I'm not a senator, but the letter clearly explains that hundreds of studies that have been done over many years gathered together by the FCC, the FDA, and other scientific organisations provide well-documented evidence into the understanding and safety of electromagnetic radiation. The World Health Organization clearly states, in the area of biological effects and medical applications of non-ionizing radiation, approximately 25,000 articles have been published over the past 30 years. Despite the feeling of some people that more research needs to be done, scientific knowledge in this area is now more extensive than for most chemicals. So, unless Blumenthal actually wants each and every one of these studies neatly rolled up and lovingly inserted one by one up into his rectum, I really have no idea what the bloke's after, to be honest. And lastly, the military active denial system that people keep on worrying about. That's because 5G and the ADS system both use millimetre wave technology. The ADS system acts as a non-lethal defence system where millimetre waves can be directly aimed at a target quite some distance away, causing the target to feel a harsh burning sensation.
Even though it can easily penetrate clothing, the ADS generates a much shorter and safer wavelength of radio waves than those used in microwave ovens.
The active denial system millimeter wave directed energy beam reaches 1/64th of an inch into human skin. So that is the outermost layer of the skin, roughly equivalent to about 3 sheets of notebook paper. It is essentially affecting the pain nerves in the outermost layer of the skin, heating them up and causing an immediate repel effect.
Even these stoic servicemen, aware of what's about to happen,
Engage.
can't help but flinch when they feel the heat.
This is the first time I've experienced the beam from the active denial system, and it feels like an intense warmth feeling, kind of similar to opening a very hot oven door, and it's a compelling feeling that you want to get out of the way of this beam.
Millimetre waves operate at a higher frequency than microwaves, allowing more information to travel at a faster speed. The catch is they're not quite as powerful, making it difficult for them to do things like penetrate the walls of buildings. Because of this slight drawback, 5G infrastructure will need to rely on more transmitters placed more frequently around the environment. So, because of these two reasons, millimetre waves and more transmitters, conspiracy theorists are worried that 5G signals can actually be turned into a 5G military death ray and targeted at individuals on the street. Danger, danger! My oh my. Well, seeing as we don't all live in an episode of the fucking X-Files, allow me to quickly explain the difference. 1. 5G radiation will be using waves that radiate outwards in all directions rather than a high-powered beam of millimetre waves concentrated directly at a target. 2. That beam of waves operates at 95 GHz, which is much higher than the upper frequency 5G will be using. 3. The ADS system also runs at over 30 kilowatts, which is 30,000 watts, whereas the small, lower powered 5G base stations are generally outputting at 2 to 10 watts. 4. Just look at the fucking thing! Right? It's like worrying about kids playing with Tamagotchis, and when somebody asks why, you say, because of Ed 209! I suffer with headaches, nausea, fatigue, forgetfulness. Many people suffer from EMF signals. Maybe you're one of the lucky ones, another person said. I pointed out yet again, as discussed in the proxy video, he's describing electromagnetic hypersensitivity, which is not a recognised medical diagnosis. Yeah, I know about that test you're on about. I saw a video on it. The bloke conducting the test made loads of mistakes, so it proves nothing. Excuse me? That test? What, like there was just one? So as tedious as this is all about to fucking get, you've left me no choice. Peer-reviewed studies. Firstly, let's go over the supposed test, looking into the imagined allergy to electronic devices, electromagnetic hypersensitivity. A 2009 review of 46 studies in the journal Bioelectromagnetics concluded, despite the conviction of EMF sufferers that their symptoms are triggered by exposure to electromagnetic fields, repeated experiments have been unable to replicate this phenomenon under controlled conditions. Then when you want to look at whether mobile phones cause cancer, in 2007 a meta-analysis was published. This included 9 case control studies containing 5,259 cases of primary brain tumours, and 12,074 controls were also included. Controls just means things in studies to watch out for to make sure that the tests aren't open to loads of errors and biases, giving you unreliable results. 5 of these studies also had a 10-year follow-up. We found no overall increased risk of brain tumours among cellular phone users. The potential elevated risks of brain tumours after long-term cellular phone use awaits confirmation from future studies. Then, we have a large case control study, the Interphone study, which included over 5,000 people with head and neck cancer from 13 countries. Overall, no increase in the risk of glioma or meningioma was observed with use of mobile phones. The possible effects of long-term heavy use of mobile phones requires further investigation. Then, following on from that was a French case control study in 2014 that found similar results but with a smaller sample size of people. Then, a very large Danish study, the largest of its time of over 350,000 people, found no link between mobile phone use and risks of any type of brain tumour. Conclusion: in this update of a large nationwide cohort study of mobile phone use, there was no increased risk of tumours of the central nervous system, providing little evidence for a causal association. Then, over in the UK, this result was confirmed in 2014 by a prospective study of nearly 800,000 women, which found that mobile phone use was not associated with an increased incidence of brain cancers. Then, another study in 2015 was conducted in New Zealand. Conclusion: in New Zealand, there has been no consistent increase in incident rates of primary brain cancers. As with any such studies, a small effect, or one with a latent period of more than 10 to 15 years, cannot be excluded. Then, in 2016, we have a 29-year-long study carried out in Australia, published in the journal Cancer Epidemiology. The author of the study, Simon Chapman, Emeritus Professor in Public Health at the University of Sydney, wrote, "We have had mobile phones in Australia since 1987. Some 90% of the population use them today, and many of these have used them for a lot longer than 20 years. But we are seeing no rise in the incidence of brain cancer against the background rate." Then, in 2018, another Australian study examined trends in the incidence of brain tumours. Conclusion: in Australia, there has been no increase in any brain tumour histological type or glioma location that can be attributed to mobile phones. And despite all of these studies and larger reviews of multiple studies continually concluding that there's nothing to worry about, people still can't resist responding with links to spurious websites that tell you all sorts of nonsense, even ones that promise to update you with regular secret information for a subscription of either $25 a month or $250 a year. Fuck knows what they send you. What, a couple of sheets of paper in a plastic wallet? Still, regardless whether or not any tin hat wearing enabler of intellectual rape has actually decided to fork over $25 a month or not, this is quite clearly the sort of thing that many people regard as a reliable source of information. Fuck! I don't really understand why conspiracy theorists spend a lot of time moaning about medicine and the pharmaceutical industry because they're worried about cancer. Why aren't they just as concerned about hack cancer doctors trying to find cancer where there isn't any? Eh? That'd piss me off. Right, I've got one more video to do specifically on 5G and then we're gonna move on, right? Because there's only so much you can say about this level of madness before going nuts yourself, and I'd rather not end up scrawling deranged messages on the wall in my own shit. Until then, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful, then please like, share, subscribe. I'm Charlie Stanton for Charlie Talk, and I'll catch you again next time. Oh, one more thing. Despite the backlash, I did notice that I've got a set of lovely new subscribers, so thank you very much. Trust me, it's very much appreciated.